Hello, welcome back to my channel. Today we have another Aventus clone comparison and I'm talking about Are You Serious Him from Rue Broca. This fragrance was released in 2020 and according to Fragrantica it's classified as an oriental vanilla fragrance, which I think is very far from reality. In my humble opinion, this one sits somewhere between Club de Nuit Intense Man and L'Aventure or L'Aventure Intense, leaning a bit more toward Club de Nuit Intense Man in the beginning of the fragrance life. If you check Fragrantica, the listed notes are pretty inaccurate. The actual notes are, we have in top bergamot, apple, blackcurrant, in mid we have birchwood, jasmine and rose, and in base finally we have ambergris, musk and patchouli. So the notes are very similar to the notes of Aventus, but honestly notes are not as important as how the fragrance actually smells and behaves in reality. Now the scent opens with a sour, citrusy and zesty note that strongly screams lemon or bergamot. It's slightly bitter and green. The opening is much better than the opening of Club de Nuit Intense Man, but not by much. It does not have that lemon pledge or lemon floor cleaner vibe, but at the same time it does not scream freshly squeezed bergamot or bergamot zest either. It's somewhere in between, leaning a bit more toward that synthetic side of the spectrum. You also get some pineapple nuance, or better say the yellow citrusy fruit tone that slowly creeps in but never fully becomes obvious. So at the opening you get a lot of sour citrus with hints of fruitiness here and there. The similarity to Aventus is around 70-80%, and if you're wondering why only 70-80%, because of that excessive sour citrus that you have in the beginning. In the air it might feel even closer, even up to 80-90%, because that fresh blast always triggers my inner Aventus sensor quickly, but up close it can be too sour, harsh and slightly bitter, reminding me more of a Club de Nuit Intense Man than the Aventus. The percentages shown are for visual representation only and are not scientific. They reflect my personal perception based on smell of how close the fragrance is to Aventus. You may feel or have different opinion, and that is equally valid. What I would like from this fragrance is for that harsh lemony note to be better blended and integrated with the other notes, maybe balanced with more fruitiness. I honestly think that would make the fragrance 10 times better. The opening lasts about 15-20 minutes. Once you reach the mid-phase, that sour citrusy green note settles down a bit, but it never fully disappears. So here you start getting some woody sweetness that definitely reminds me of the mid-phase of Aventus. The fragrance is no longer as harsh as in the beginning. It feels more pleasant, especially in the air, and everything starts to level out. This leveling happens with most fragrances. The opening is flashy, but once you reach the mid, things calm down. The fragrance is not very smoky, the smokiness is balanced and toned down here. You still get some tar-like bitterness from the birchwood, which is not very appealing, especially when smelled up close, and more specific in the first part of the mid phase. And this again reminds me of Club de Nuit Intense Man. At this stage I would say it reaches about 80-85% similarity to Aventus, especially closer to the newer Aventus batches, but with a stretch. And that stretch, you guessed, is still that citrus sourness that's a little bit annoying. Also, have you noticed how fragrances often get better after the opening? Spoiler alert, that's how most Aventus clones behave. There are exceptions with other fragrances where the opening is good, but the dry down becomes boring or disappointing. But in most cases with Aventus clones, this is how they behave. They're pretty bad in the beginning, some of them are better, but most of them, they suck. And in the mid, and some of them in the dry down, they shine. Talking about the dry down, moving to the dry down now, the scent gains some vanilla sweetness and some ambergris, or a wannabe ambergris, musky, sweety, salty accord. All of this stuff makes the fragrance softer, fluffier and more appealing. That sour bitterness is dialed down and better balanced here with the other notes and accords. The fruitiness from the beginning, that pineapple-ish yellow fruit, now becomes more obvious because it's no longer covered by that sour lemon blanket. The fragrance gets a bit smoky, just a little, and reminds me of the fruity vanilla Aventus batches. Dry down and holder pants also reminds me a bit of L'Aventure Intense Man. So what I said in the beginning, Are You Serious Him feels like a mix between Club de Nuit Intense Man and L'Aventure or L'Aventure Intense, whatever, they smell the same. You get some smoke here, but it's much less than you have in Club de Nuit Intense Man. And as you reach the dry down, that sour citrus fades away here and goes in the background and becomes closer to Aventus and closer to the newer batches of Aventus and also closer to L'Aventure Intense Man, though I'd say much sweeter L'Aventure Intense Man, because here it's a little bit dried. Here in the dry down it becomes much more appealing and significantly closer to Aventus. At this stage I'd say it reaches 90-95% in similarity. The only differences are that Aventus feels slightly more 3D, multi-dimensional fragrance, a bit fruitier, sweeter, and of course better quality, but not by much. This is far better than Club de Nuit Intense Man, and I like it as much as L'Aventure Intense, maybe even a bit more, because it has more sweetness and is not as dry as L'Aventure. So overall, Are You Serious Him from Rue Broca feels like an Aventus interpretation where the citrus sourness and slightly bitter note is exaggerated, especially in the opening and in the first part of the mid phase. But once you reach the second part of the mid phase and the dry down, the resemblance to Aventus is very strong, reaching up to 95%. In my opinion, it's better than Club de Nuit Intense Man. I enjoy it in the same proportions as L'Aventure and L'Aventure Intense, maybe a bit more because of its sweetness and slightly softer feel. Now the performance, the concentration is eau de parfum, longevity is good, around 7 to 8 hours on my skin, sometimes longer when the weather is cooler. Projection is moderate for the first 1 hour, 1 hour and a half, then it moves closer to your personal space, but it does not become a skin scent until, I don't know, the very last hours. The sillage is a lingerie, fruity, sweet, leathery smoke with moderate strength, nothing crazy. It behaves similarly to the current Aventus batches. Now, compliments, being an Aventus-style scent, it has good chances of getting compliments. Personally, I didn't receive many that I clearly remember, and I don't want to lie that I received a lot of compliments from this fragrance, and it's so crazy good that everyone wants to know what I'm wearing. Anyway, if you tried Are You Serious Him from Rue Broca and received compliments, let me know in the comment section, because I did not receive one that I could remember for this video. Now, season, you can wear this year round. I personally wouldn't wear it in extreme heat because the sour accord could become cloying during the first part of the fragrance life, but after that it's pretty much good. Now the price is around $20-25, but recently it's been out of stock in many online shops, and this is another downside of this fragrance beside that sour, bitter accord from the beginning. Hopefully it will be restocked soon. I'd like to have a backup bottle in case I finish this one. You can also check my other clone, Aventus clone videos on the channel. I cover as well other fragrances, but I see that, I don't know, they don't have success as Aventus clones or so ever. One thing for those who are looking for Aventus or Aventus clones, Aventus is not the only cool fragrance. Trust me, this is just a phase right now, and you'll pass that as soon as you find a better fragrance. But you'll always go back to Aventus because maybe this is your first favorite fragrance. Until the next time, take care.